Cheers. Thanks, guys. I note earlier this year that US President Biden has signed into law a measure requiring the administration to declassify intelligence related to potential links between China's Wuhan Institute of Virology and COVID-19 pandemic amid continued questions about the virus origins. I've asked you before whether or not ASIO is interested in looking at the origins of the virus, given the potential risk brought about by the fact we have a number of universities conducting gain-of-function research here in Australia. Is that something, given that the US are now going to look at, that yourself or Murray, Senator Minister Watt, you can answer this, look at here?
ASIO is not looking at the origins of COVID from an intelligence point of view, because we're looking at current threats to security, and so we're not looking at that.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that. So you're looking at current threats. If we've got universities conducting gain-of-function research, and I'll note Sydney University, for example, a bloke by the name of Ed Holmes, he was one of the first people contacted by Anthony Fauci to look into the origins of the virus. He's had FOIs put on requesting his emails that Sydney University won't release. I have a concern that there isn't enough oversight of this particular threat, given that we want what we went through with the whole COVID pandemic over the 2 years, be it lockdowns, lockouts, whatever. I'm flabbergasted at the fact that the government isn't prepared to assess this risk here in Australia.
Sorry, the question is...
Well, the question is, why don't you consider it a threat, given that there is a genuine risk of gain of function? And it's not necessarily because people are planning to do anything, but there is a risk. So from a quality assurance point of view, I would have thought that there'd be controls around, viruses getting out as a result of gain of function.
No, certainly I understand the question. So we look at threats to security, and so we will look at capabilities, what people might actually use. We're focused on individuals who, for whatever reason, want to do something that represents a threat to security and the toolkit they can use. But COVID is not our focus at this point in time. We're not seeing violent extremists or...
No, and I'm not saying these people are extremists. What I'm saying is that there's a risk, and they may have the best intentions of the world, but there's a genuine biochemistry risk here that something could go wrong, number one.
Sure, Senator, but a gun is also a risk, but I don't look at who's manufacturing guns. I look at people's intent to use a gun to kill people.
So let's take it a step further then. Sydney University employs Ed Holmes. He has had experience with the Wuhan Institute. He's been over there in the past. Have you looked at, for example, are there links between Edward Holmes and Anthony Fauci? And I note that the former NIH director has said that Anthony Fauci has lied about gain-of-function research in the past. They're his words, not mine. So maybe there's a motive, big profit motive, driven about because people are being paid to indulge in gain-of-function research.
Point of order here. Point of order.
Sorry, Senator Rennick. Just give me one moment. Senator Shoebridge.
It's not the place for budget estimates to do character attacks, in this case on Professor Holmes, and to make allegations and impute that professor's motives in circumstances where A, it has no connection to the subject matter before us in ASIO, and B, Professor Holmes I think deserves fairer treatment from his parliament than this.
Senator Shoebridge, as you're fully aware, the committee does have a process to deal with adverse comments, and I'm sure we'll take that opportunity. Senator Rennick, I'll just remind you, and I'm sorry, we seem to get into this bind quite often, you and I, on relevance of your questions to budget estimates for ASIO.
So the relevance is, I've got ASIO in front of me. Okay, we've got a risk. The relevance to estimates is if we dropped a couple of $100 billion dealing with COVID, and there's potential risks out there in gain-of-function research that no one seems to want to actually address.
I think you might be misunderstanding. Relevance to this budget estimates in relation to this agency. What I'm encouraging you to do is draw that relevance out in your questions, and if Mr. Burgess, if his response is that it's not relevant to the work he does, I'd ask that you accept that question.
So, okay, who's responsible for assessing the gain-of-function research here in Australia then?
Biosecurity is a matter for the Department of Agriculture.
Okay, biosecurity, but that's not
we're
actual
saying
university research. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So we'll move on, and as usual, it's like there's nothing to see here.
Thanks all.
Okay,
Appreciate your help.
so I'm just okay.
Senators,
Sorry,
sorry.
Mr. Padillo's got some advice on this.
Thank you.
Gain-of-function research, insofar as it relates to human biosecurity, is a matter for the Health Minister under the relevant provisions of the Biosecurity Act, which otherwise the Minister for Agriculture actually administers, Minister, if you don't mind me saying, under the administrative arrangements orders. But the Human Biosecurity Officer is the Chief Medical Officer who reports to the Health Minister. Gain-of-function research, which, as I understand the burden of your question, relates to the safety of labs, the safety of that research is conducted,
That's exactly
is
right.
a matter for the health portfolio.
Okay, thank you.
Authorised G. Rennick, LNP Chermside.